Hey y'all, Danny here, and normally I make videos on Fire Emblem, but while procrastinating the biggest project I've worked on all year, I recently got obsessed with a beautiful indie Metroidvania called Constance. And because this is such a big year for games, especially indie games, I feel this title has kind of flown under the radar. And that's understandable. This is the year that brought us both Silksong and Deltarune, alongside other phenomenal indie games like Blueprints, Dispatch, Expedition 33, and so many others. And that's why I wanted to make a video spotlighting Constance. If you like platformers or Metroidvanias, then I feel like you need to play this game. You control the titular Constance and make your way through a beautiful hand-drawn world. As an artist, Constance uses her magical paintbrush to overcome difficult platforming challenges and defeat powerful foes. And as you might expect, all of the upgrade powers you get are themed around paint and art. There's a paint stab attack, which deals extra damage to foes and destroys corruption barriers. There's a brush pogo where you can bounce on spikes without taking damage, or a paint dash attack where Constance turns her entire body into paint and passes through enemies or small gaps without taking damage. And getting this dash ability as your first movement upgrade opens up a lot of interesting platforming and combat choices. But the dash and most of Constance's other special abilities are limited by her paint supply, which functions as this game's mana equivalent. Your paint meter does refill over time as long as you don't use any more special abilities, but it's a little bit more complicated than you might expect. If Constance ever hits 0 paint, then she will become corrupted, and remains corrupted until the paint meter refills to full. While corrupted, you can still use your special abilities, but instead of costing you paint, it costs you HP, in a system that I find quite similar to Bloodborne's Blood Bullets. And this can make for some very satisfying risk-reward sequences. This primarily comes up in combat. If you are close to finishing off a strong boss or a difficult enemy gauntlet, spending health in order to output those last points of damage can be worth the risk. Alternatively, there are some abilities that let you recover HP. So if you trade HP for damage in the hopes of recovering it later, you can potentially make life a lot easier for you. But one of the things that I like the most about this system is not just the risk-reward management it encourages, but how it ties into the game's overall themes. Because Constance is a game about many things: depression, anxiety, childhood trauma, but especially burnout. And so, the idea of using your HP to do your special skills when you've run out of paint feels like a very natural extension of the overall theme of Constance working herself so hard that it is a genuine danger to her health. The candle that burns brightest also burns fastest, and all that jazz. But the paint system isn't the only place where Constance's gameplay reflects this theme, as Constance has a unique death mechanic. Anytime you die, you are given the option to either respawn at the most recent shrine you rested at, similar to bonfires, benches, or any number of parallels, or you can persist further, but suffer from the Puppet's Curse. This curse makes all enemies significantly stronger, both offensively and defensively, and limits them to only dropping 2 Glimmer, which is the game's central currency. However, they also all drop a health pickup, which is normally not something you can obtain from killing enemies. As such, persisting under the Puppet's Curse instead of taking a break and returning to the shrine is, once again, Constance pushing herself to her limits and suffering for it. But interestingly, the Puppet's Curse also kind of makes the game easier should you choose to use it. And that's because if you're facing a difficult platforming gauntlet or fighting a boss that you've almost killed, you can choose to just continue from where you left off instead of dying. And the Puppet's Curse gets cured next time you rest at a shrine. I personally didn't use the Puppet's Curse all that often because I found the challenge to be more thrilling, but I think this is a cool way of handling the fabled Souls easy mode debate. For the sorts of people that want to use it, this is there as a bit of a guardrail. But for anyone who craves challenge, you can just easily ignore it. And it gets bonus points for tying into the game's theme and world in an interesting way. But even if you ignore the corrupted paint mechanic or the puppet's curse, Constance's campaign does touch upon the theme of burnout in one last interesting way. After defeating any of the major bosses, the gameplay takes a quick break to give you an interactive flashback to Constance's past. And these short vignettes give a really overwhelming sense of the stresses she was dealing with. You get spammed with messages from coworkers and tasks that you need to perform in a timely manner, and all of these elements spiral out of control in such a way that it's no wonder the protagonist is having a breakdown. It's a really cool touch, and each of these flashbacks has you interacting with a different form of art, so you kind of get a well-rounded picture. Constance uses paint during her platforming, but you do things like video editing and playing musical instruments in the flashbacks. And the game incorporates photography into its fairly interesting map system. You see, early on, one of the NPCs gives you a camera, as well as a limited number of reusable film strips. Your map builds itself as you explore rooms, but aside from some very basic markers for elevators and shrines, it doesn't populate with that much information. Instead, it just shows where rooms are and how they connect to each other. So, if you spot a suspicious piece of the environment that you can't interact with yet, but know is going to be important once you get a new upgrade, you can take a picture of it with your Polaroid, and that picture will be stored in the map, showing you what room it was taken in. That way, once you get the tool that you need to interact with it, you will know exactly where to beeline back to. Functionally, this system isn't too different from the map markers or pins that you can leave in other Metroidvanias, but I like how it ties into Constance's artistry, and it's used in a pretty interesting ghost hunting side quest, since the ghosts will show up on film, but not in real life. Neat stuff all around. Constance's upgrade system is also tied to a different form of art, drawing and sketches. You have a sketchbook where you can equip a variety of inspirations. They're kind of like badges from Paper Mario or charms from Hollow Knight. But instead of functioning on a specific badge point or charm notch system, instead, each of these inspirations comes in a discrete shape, such as a horizontal line, an L shape, or even just a singular dot for the less powerful ones. And so you have to arrange these upgrades like you're doing inventory management in Resident Evil 4. And as a bonus, some of these inspirations care about how many other inspirations they're touching. So you don't just have to arrange things to fit everyone, but also potentially arrange things in a specific order to get the maximum benefits. Your sketchbook starts out fairly small, with most of the spaces scratched off. But as you get erasers, you will free up more space to work with, and therefore can equip the more powerful and larger inspirations. And the inspirations themselves can be upgraded. They start out as black and white sketches, but there's a merchant who can add color to them, increasing their potency. Hopefully this, along with the beautiful visuals in the background, has convinced you to at least check out Constance. The Steam page is linked below, but I believe it's available on other platforms as well, in case your PC isn't strong enough to run it. Anyway, that's all I got for now. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Stay safe, gamers.